Hello fellow collectors, thanks for clicking on the video. I hope you're all doing really well. Today it's a continuation of my new series about the best films I've watched in the preceding month. So without further preamble, let's get right into it and in no particular order, talk about the best films I watched during February. First up is Denis Villeneuve's Dune, which was actually the first film that I watched this month, so I got off to a pretty great start. I read the book back in 2018 and I thought it was easily one of the best things I've ever read, a truly astonishing work in both scope and execution. So when I heard they were going to be making a film, I was slightly sceptical to say the least, until I heard that it was going to be Denis Villeneuve directing it. As we all know, a phenomenal director that I thought would definitely have what it takes to do the story justice and make something really special. Well, I'm delighted to say that in my humble opinion, he did just that. I was of course relieved that this film is just part one, as condensing the story into one film could never work well. But here he manages to capture perfectly the enormity of scale that this story demands. I also thought it was perfectly paced, and the 2.5 hours just flew by for me. I'm really excited to see part two, and it's really in part two where things properly kick off, so I'm incredibly curious to see how he tackles it. Next we have The Cranes Are Flying, the Criterion edition. I bought this one in a previous Criterion sale, knowing nothing about it particularly. I'd just seen my first Tarkovsky film and I thought, well, let me get some more Soviet films while I have the chance. And my goodness, how grateful I am for that train of thought. This film blew me away. It's safe to say that this is easily one of the most beautifully shot films that I've ever seen. The phrase, each frame a painting, doesn't even come close to describing it. Gorgeous from the first shot to the last. This was such an astonishing cinematic experience for me and deeply moved me. There is some really wonderful acting, some painful realism and even disturbing implications. I describe it as a tragedy with a thread of hope woven throughout. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favour and watch it. For me, it's a film that exemplifies what I love about the cinema journey that I'm on. From out of nowhere, with no expectations or real foreknowledge, you discover something truly exquisite that finds its way onto your favourites of all time list. Moving on, we have A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I was away for a couple of weeks this last month, and so my journey to reach the end of my watch list was put on hold for a bit. I thought I'd subscribe to the BFI's streaming service so I could still enjoy some films while I was travelling, and I'm very happy that I did. I'd vaguely heard about this one before, but had never had much motivation to watch it for whatever reason. But I found myself sat down one evening and was just browsing through what the BFI had available, and the description of this one said, Iranian Vampire Western. Now, if there's ever been a more interesting description of a film, I'd love to see it. Immediately my interest was piqued, so I put it on, and what a ride it was. Another one from my list that was beautifully shot. It was incredibly stylised, had somehow a dark tone, yet with plenty of lightness. It was different to anything I've seen before, honestly, and it stuck with me since I've watched it. In some crazy way, a feel-good film, I think. I really loved it, and I can't wait to revisit this one later on. This month, I also rewatched the Before Trilogy from Richard Linklater, one of the most unique filmmakers in my opinion. Interestingly, I was trying to think when I last saw these, and it actually was around 9 or 10 years ago, which felt quite appropriate. I remember when Before Midnight came out and seeing it that year, and I'd seen the previous two the year before, and I haven't watched any of them since then. I brought the Criterion box set back in mid-2020, and it's just been sealed and sat on my shelf, just waiting for the right moment to be watched. And I felt, for whatever reason, that it came about a week and a half ago. As I put the first one on, I wasn't intending to watch them all in a row in a single night, but I just found myself unable to stop once I'd begun. What a wonderful journey it was moving through this trilogy. In particular, I'm going to highlight Before Sunset, which has now become my favourite of the three. If the axiom is correct that your favourite of the three films is usually going to be the one that reflects your stage of life, then perhaps that will give you a clue as to my age. Before Sunset is the shortest of the three films, but it doesn't at all feel rushed or incomplete. It's just succinct and to the point. The thread of hope that runs throughout this one is something that I really love. They shared the hope of seeing each other again one day, and though mostly unspoken, you feel the hope from the characters, as well as of course from the audience, that this film might end with a rekindled romance. Though slightly jaded by their experiences over the preceding 9 years, this thread of hope and the promise remains in both our central characters. It is written exquisitely well and truly feels like you're watching the same characters that have grown over the years and just come back together again. The idea that a single night can shape your life for better or worse is poignant and heartfelt. The ending I particularly love here as well, and a song actually written by Julie Delpy is really wonderful. I think I'll put these away for another 9 or 10 years, and again see how my perspective has changed during a rewatch over just one night. Up next is another that was completely unexpected for me, and that's Naomi Kawase's Sweet Bean. This was another one that I found on a BFI streaming service, though I'd heard of this one before as it's in the Eureka Masters of Cinema collection. I'd been tempted to get it before, and I'm not ashamed to say that I bought it straight after I watched it. In fact, I picked up 2 copies of it, so I could keep one and give one away as a gift to someone who I think will love it. As the title suggests, some delicious sweet beans are the hook to this story that unfolds between a middle-aged man in debt, an ailing grandmother, and a poor schoolgirl who wants to run away from home. 3 strangers brought so wonderfully together. This is one that really tugs on your heartstrings, and I teared up more than once. It's beautifully told and shot, with space to breathe and let things sink in. I really loved this one, and if you're interested in seeing some more recent Japanese cinema, then this one from 2015 will not let you down. Last but by no means least, we have Wild Search by Ringo Lam and starring Chow Yun-fat. If anyone watched my video showing the Eureka haul that I did, I showed the 5 Hong Kong films that I purchased. Well, out of them all, and this was by a decent margin, this one was my favourite. And as a quick aside, it really sucks that Ringo Lam's films are so hard to find, so I really hope Eureka releases more from him. Wild Search was this wonderful melange of cop thriller, romance and family drama. Chow Yun-fat was excellent as our protagonist. I loved his performance here, and Cherie Chung was every bit his equal. They had fantastic chemistry together, and it really drew me into the film. From 1989, it did have a few of the cop movie tropes that you'd expect from sort of any Hollywood film from the time, but of course with that excellent Hong Kong twist. Throw into the story here an incredibly adorable child, and you've got a really, really wonderful film that I highly recommend. Like last month, I thought I'd do just a couple of honourable mentions, those being Summer with Monika, which is the second Bergman film I've ever seen, and I'm going to suggest up until the end, which I didn't personally like, it was really quite wonderful, and Diabolique, which is another stunning film from Henri-Georges Clouzot, with some absolute heart-rate destroying thrills and suspense. Well, that's everything from me and my February in film. I hope yours was equally as excellent, and let's hope March is even better. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.